Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 95, Applying Quality Assurance when Delivering Services, Web Development and Design Teams. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to another of the Builders. Today we're going to talk about quality assurance, QA as they say, and how it relates, well, I'll share how it relates to what we do as a web design agency and web development, doing a lot of web development, maintenance, and all that good stuff. And how we think about it, we'll talk about, why it exists in the first place and why it's so important. Why do we use it? And then, again, how it relates to our projects, what we're doing for clients, and how it relates to web development and design a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit about user testing and stuff too, and retrospectives when things go wrong. So that's what I'm going to cover today. I'm just going to kind of go through that in the context of what we do from the trenches, because that's the whole thing we do here at the Builders. So first of all, what is quality assurance? It's basically things you do to ensure the quality of what you deliver. Okay, so if you are building a website for somebody, making sure when you deliver that website that it works, that it doesn't crash the first day, or there isn't some issue with the menu that you didn't figure out beforehand. If it's a small feature, the same thing. Did you test that little feature that you did? Now, if it's related to, if you're running a marketing agency or ad agency or something like that, it would probably be somebody's reviewing what those ads look like before they're released to the public, so that you don't, or, the text you're using, the words you use. Is there some issue with that? Is there a misspelling? Little things like that. That's all quality assurance. It's making sure before it's released to the world, to the public, or even to the client, you catch as much as possible. Any bugs, any issues, and all that good stuff. So now, why does it exist? And why does it need to exist? For me, at the top of that list is what I talked about recently in an episode. I think the last episode, actually, episode 94. I think I talked a lot about client retention. If you actually want to keep business and you want clients to keep coming back to you or to stay with you long term, quality kind of has to be at the top of the list of things you're worried about. It just needs to be baked into what you do. It's not something that I stay awake at night thinking about or that I even think about at all, because it's just baked into what we do in our processes. So it just happens, right? That's how it has to be kind of designed. Otherwise, you will go crazy. You will go crazy because what you deliver isn't going to be good. But it's not something that's always like communicated. It's something that we all need to be thinking about and doing as we're building things. Now, I work with teams, and I do stuff myself, or have done a lot of stuff myself in the past. I work with teams. For me, even if I'm a web developer, I'm not just coding something. Like if I'm building a feature, I'm not just coding it and then hoping for the best. While I'm doing it, I'm testing it. And, testing in a variety of ways. Whether it's browser testing, you might call it unit testing, whatever you're going to call it. You're testing as you go. You're looking at, if you created an interface, you're looking at that interface. You're trying to responsive side. How's it look in mobile, or how does it work? That's all stuff we're doing as we're actually building stuff. And then before you deliver it, though, there's other things you can do to review that and ensure the quality. Now, you want to do it because there's going to be fewer surprises. There's going to be less stress for the team, because from the team perspective, just getting stuff back and be like, you're having a client that's freaking out because something went wrong. It's less stress, obviously, on the client because they're getting things that are delivered in a quality manner, so they don't have to worry about stuff. And so all that's, it relieves stress. So like that's really what quality assurance is. It relieves stress. You're not going to lose sales because something's broken. You're not going to, have to worry about it later, right? When you deliver it, there's better chance that everything's going to be okay. I'll give you an example real quick of that playing out. Like one of our clients, our long-term clients, we've been working with for well over a year and a half. When I first started working with them, I could sense from the client that they had a lot of bad experiences. Every time I would release an update to their website, they would immediately go in there and be checking everything out. And they would communicate it to me and said, because when we've had developers do that, they'll fix one thing and something else on the site is broken. It happens a lot, right? And there's reasons for that. There's reasons for that. That shouldn't happen if you are coding things correctly and doing it properly. If you have a good theme or template for your website that's built properly and everything is properly done. Properly. But that was a real concern with this client. And they have less of a concern after working with us for a year and a half because of our quality assurance and our knowledge around what we do. We actually do things in a way where things don't tend to break down the line or on some other random page on the site. If you know how to do, especially with CSS, right? Cascading style sheets. CSS is how you style a website. It's the code you use to style a website. And a lot of times if you add some CSS and you don't do it right, it can affect something. So you could, if you don't target that specific button and style that, and you do it too broadly, it can affect buttons on another part of a site. With every element on your site, it can be that way. So it's little things like that. But that is why it exists, though, why quality assurance has to exist. Quality assurance is kind of about knowledge too, about experience, but it's also these other things I'm going to be talking about that need to exist. So when you do release it, the client, the end users aren't going to have problems. And that relieves stress on that client. They're probably still, I'm guessing, but they're probably still working with us because they know that Matt is careful, that we have a process to ensure the quality of what we're releasing. Okay? So what dictates how, there's this other thing too, is like how much quality assurance do you need? How much do you need to do? How much testing do you need to do? And, and does it always need to exist? And that's based on the project. It's project by project. Some projects are very complicated, so it needs more testing. Or a particular task is more, the thing you're doing is more complicated. There's more moving parts or whatever, and so it needs more testing. Other things don't. It's also revenue driven, right? It's sales driven. If you have a website you're working on that's not getting much traffic or it's brand new, they don't have any traffic yet. You got a little leeway there to discover some things afterwards or be a little more lax. And sometimes it's also just time. Sometimes you got to push stuff out quickly. You're fixing something quickly, or there's sometimes you get clients that are doing promotions and need something yesterday. But other times you do have a lot of sales. It's an e-commerce site. Like we have e-commerce sites that we help manage and have built or work with or maintain. And every time we do something, we have to have the most thorough upfront quality assurance practices as possible, because literally if something breaks, literally sales will be lost. Okay. So you got to understand the impact of what you're doing. And I'll give you an example. This is from the trenches. These things I'm going to share things that actually have happened recently. So we updated a plugin that is literally the most important plugin on an e-commerce site, and that is a payment plugin. Okay? And so this payment plugin was a brand new PayPal plugin. And we're replacing one that existed. And Matt, that trips a wire in my brain right away. I'm like, we are testing the heck out of this. We're all hands on, on deck on this. I want to make sure it's tested. I want to make sure we know, and we're dealing with actually that tech department of the plugin. They're working with us and we're asking questions and we're doing all the things we should do. We tested in a sandbox, make sure everything's working. And we released it and something went wrong. Now, and this is an example. This is an example towards the end. We'll talk a little bit about retrospectives. But this is an example where we did get surprised by something. We had tested it, but something happened when it went live that we didn't see when we were testing and just popped up. And it's actually not even funny because sales were lost. Payments were failing. We luckily have another thing that we're not talking about today, but another thing in that we do. There's always a revert path. We can reverse what we did. I asked my developer in this case specifically, said, make sure you tell me what you updated or how you did this particular thing. So if I need to revert, that I can do it myself. So in my case, so I don't have to. There's no delay if in this case, when it did go wrong, there was no delay because I didn't have to, okay, I got to create a card in Trello and say, this broke, please go in and revert. No, I knew how to do it ahead of time. It was explained to me what he did exactly, where the code was, so I could go in myself and revert and disable that plugin, re-enable the other one. Boom, done. But that is the impact was sales, 100%. Now, we did everything we could, and obviously the client's impacted by this, but we got a good relationship, and they know we did everything we could. Things are going to happen, right? But and it's just like having website backups. As long as you have a way to restore, revert, it's good. But that is the impact it can have. It's real impact. It's real impact on revenue. Everything we do on the maintenance side of what we do, all the things we're doing, we're not just web designers and web developers. That's not what we are. We're the people that keep your website up and running and make sure you're getting sales. And your sales don't, your site doesn't break, so you stop getting sales. That's really our role. Yeah, we do all the things behind the scenes and all the things we're doing, all the processes and updating things and fixing bugs and all that good stuff. But really, our role is to make sure your website's working and there's not issues. So that's basically why it exists, though. It's really to make sure that, less stress, sales aren't lost, things keep running smoothly, and having quality assurance on anything that you're doing is important. And this can relate to marketing agencies or whatever. If you don't have a process to make sure what you're releasing is quality, whether that's a webinar, whether that's some funnel you've built, you got to have somebody in there testing that, So the other thing with this, is, this is what we'll do next year. So I'm going to talk again from the trenches, like how we do it. Now, this is us. Now, there's going to be larger agencies than we are, and there's going to be larger companies than we are, or situations where you have to have a whole QA team, like a whole team in place. We kind of do. There's scenarios where we have that exists in a way. But for the most part, a lot of our projects, though, it's basically the resources are, that are taking care of quality assurance are baked into just the building of the process, and then bringing people in-house with various roles to come and check those things, or me, right? I check a lot of the stuff. It has to, it might flow through me in a way. A lot of times, it depends on how critical it is. I'm going to be more involved with more critical stuff. One of the things that it has to be in place as well is having the right resources working on the project, right? The person with the best that's qualified to be doing that type of work, whether it's CSS work or whether it's building broader features, working with databases or working with WordPress's, like the back end code and all this stuff. Depending on what it is, you have to have people in place. We have somebody on our team that is dedicated to, all they do is Bootstrap, translating designs to Bootstrap. That's their whole thing. And they're really good at it. They're experts at it. And so that's the first thing, is to find that person that's the best qualified for that particular job, right? That particular project. So that's first. That's the first part of the quality assurance, is making sure you have quality people doing the work. The other thing is the processes, making sure as things are being built, whether you're building a whole website or whether you're building a feature, that it's baked into the process of doing that. The person doing it is doing their own testing, right? So if we do actually a full WordPress theme, a custom WordPress theme, we have it broken into, this is something I kind of figured out years ago when I first started doing them myself. I have it broken into phases. And think about it from like, alpha to beta to release, if you're just thinking about versions and versioning and all that good stuff. But layman's terms, it's just, different phases of a project, your beginning of the project, middle to the end. But there's multiple points there where you're doing browser testing, you're testing what you're doing, right? And you also bring in other people to look at the work, review it, see if there's any bugs or anything that needs to be done. So that's baked into the actual project itself. Then you'll have multiple eyeballs, multiple people at those different points. For example, it might be me coming in, or it might be another team member coming in that's been identified. If we have a project manager, she might be the one that comes in to review certain aspects of our maintenance. So in that fact, that's what we have right now going on. For the longest time, I have a developer that helps me with maintenance projects, does a lot more in terms of maintenance, like does a lot of other stuff like features and building stuff. But part of that role is keeping a WordPress site up to date, updating the plugins and testing all that and whatever. But I never just leave it to that person. Okay, so the process goes like this. So they will do the updates, and then they test the site themselves. They make sure everything looks good, that the checkout's working. And then they say, Matt, I'm done. Maybe they don't say it that way. But in Trello, I'm tagged. They're done. So now I go and look at the website, review the website, make sure it can check out, do that stuff. And then I give him the green light. He releases it. It goes live. This is a basic example. Releases it, goes live. He checks it live, that it's been updated, and that everything's working, and the checkout's working live. And then we notify the client that they know this update was done and that they should keep their eyes and ears open. So there's multiple people involved before it even gets to the client, before it goes live. Recently, I've extracted myself partly from that process, is where I have somebody else that's filled my role of checking the websites. And so that's something we're in the process of, because Matt's trying to remove himself from not that I couldn't do that, but I'm trying to always find ways to improve the process and make sure there's no bottlenecks like me. Because I shouldn't be the one because it would get delayed, and it's because Matt's working on all this other stuff in the business, right? So I have to extract myself from that and make sure I have another resource that can handle that and learn how to do what I did. So, but there's always multiple eyeballs on these projects. And the other thing, we do is we take our time. Now, with that PayPal plugin that I was talking about earlier, we took our time. And I even said when the client reached out to me to tell me there was an issue, or their support did, I'm like, I told him, I said, this is why I take my time. It didn't work in this case, but this is the type of thing that we need to take our time. We need to be more cautious and more careful and all that good stuff. But it's not rushing. Quality assurance means you're not rushing. Now, you can't always prevent that, and there's things going, and we work with clients that are like, boom, 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 like we need it now. Here's a project we're launching in 2 days. It's like, so you can only do so much in those instances. That's going to happen, but you take as much time as you can, or you get more eyeballs in that short time frame, so, but it's not rushing. That's really, really important. So for us as an agency, the way we do things, it's having the right people, the right resources in place. It's, we don't have a dedicated QA team all the time. There's instances where there's scenarios, like I said, it's baked into the delivery, baked into actually building the projects, having multiple eyeballs and taking our time and making sure things are done well. Now, on specifically with like dev and maintenance, to kind of break that down, I kind of did that already, but we do the work. Now, sometimes with our maintenance, we're actually building, maybe redesigning a web page. And this is actually Shopify too. We do some Shopify, actually a recent project. So I'll share that. So this is all kind of happening. I'm not actually involved with this project because I got people that help me. It's great. But I see it from the sidelines. I'm seeing it happening. We got the request. They wanted to, the client wanted to redo this page, redesign it. And so our designer redesigned it, and we reviewed that design. We sent that to the client. The client approved it. And then we send that to our dev. They build it. And then that's reviewed again. We send it back to the client. And all of this is happening. During that process, while the designer she designed the stuff, then it comes to me. I might take a look at it, or the project manager takes a look at it, and then we send it to the client. They look at all that's happening with multiple eyeballs, like I was talking about. Then once it's done, now it's going to go live. And now, so that same process happens like I just talked about earlier. So that page will go live. We'll all look at it, make sure it's okay. But we did catch something in this instance. It was going to go live. I was actually, I was reviewing, I was going through to review, reviewing stuff in general. And I caught, I'm like, there was some dummy content on there. And which almost went live, I think. I'm not sure, 100%. Maybe it would have been caught by somebody else. I'm like, let's just make sure. Let's just make sure that this is the proper content in here, the proper videos. There's a page, basically a testimonials page with video, and make sure we have the right videos in there. I think we're good though. Just make sure, double check. And that's sometimes the words that come out of my mouth. Just double check. Let's make sure of that. Let's verify. If we're not 100% sure, let's make sure. That saves us, quite often. But the clients are involved in that process, and we use, in this case, in terms of tools. So we use Trello for our project management, but that's mostly for our internal team, all our teams. That's where we get our work done. But in this case, we have a route. We have multiple routes. We have clients with their own project management systems and things. But instead of email, we try to get them to use Zendesk. That's our ticket center. So a request will come in there, and that's where we're communicating and getting it done and getting the reviews and all that from the client. That's where my project manager picks it up, or I would pick it up, and that's sent to Trello. So there's this, that's kind of the stream. It's like, client in Zendesk, and then to Trello, and we're working on stuff, we're reviewing stuff, and that's where all the communications happen. But everyone, they got the dev, got my project manager who's onboarding and assigning it. I still go through, even with the project manager there, I'm still going through and seeing things. So I have to continually, or I might just see something happen and I check in on it or whatever, that's part of my quality assurance as well, right? It's very important to always be thinking of that. Like, I can assume that things are going well most of the time because I have good people. But that doesn't mean I can't check in on somebody and be like, and just kind of review what they're doing. And if I see something, that's how they learn too, So none of us, we're all human. None of us are perfect. There's things I'm going to miss. There's things somebody else is going to miss. So it's all working together as a team. There's things. So my team catches me sometimes, maybe more often than I'd like to admit. One of my developers calls something out. I had this happen recently. I'm thinking of a very specific event. And I told him, I said, I don't know what I would do without you. It was something related to that plugin, actually, I think. But they're looking out too. So if I miss something, they'll call that out, because it's important to have that relationship where they can say something and be comfortable saying something. Hey, Matt, I'm not going to do that. They can tell me no. Give me an example. So earlier this year, we moved one of our major clients. We have some clients that are really, sizable contracts and maintenance related. This one was maintenance related. And we moved them to a new server. I'm very involved with that. I do most of the server stuff around here. Most of it. But I moved the server, moved it all over there, whatever. And everything was looking good. And I went to my developer who helped me with it, help with the move. I get help. Like, I'm just mainly on the server side, just managing things and, helping move things along. But I said to my developer, I said, okay, so we have these new staging areas. So they're on a new server. They got a new staging area. We can delete the staging on our other staging area here. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, okay. But I trust him and I value him as a web developer, right? I know he's really good. He's one of the best developers I have. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, I get it. Because he, again, coming back to quality assurance, he's not comfortable yet. Even though we just went live and we have the other staging, he's not comfortable to let go of this other staging, because what if something happens over here and we need to reference the old server or the old, build or whatever. That's good. And that's why you have to be careful. That's why we're careful with backups. We're careful with all that stuff. It's because of quality assurance. Because even though you have all of those things in place, we tested that site and all that stuff. You also, part of that is having a backup plan, and we're making sure that, because especially in web development, again, that was a very complex project. It was very complex to move those sites. It was actually 2, because they had a subdomain for a members area and stuff, and an active site, and they have active members and all this stuff. So it was a whole thing. But now it's over there. Things are going to happen. Things are still going to happen. So to ensure quality on this side, you have to have the backups. You have to have a backup plan, a plan to revert, a plan to do all kinds. I've had to do that. I've had to revert, updating DNS to point on a new server, and something goes wrong. Maybe it was that same case. It was a double try. The first time something was messed up, the site was hacked, and there was some major issues when we moved it the first time. So I had to revert the DNS, but it was just like, but that's the reason we caught that, and the reason is because we were testing. Even when we went live, we're still testing and making sure everything was okay. And then so it was weeks later, we made all these changes. We had to do all this malware, worrying about all this stuff, getting the actual web host involved, and making sure that we could do it again, and there was going to be no issues. In that case, one of the reasons we did move is because they were getting hacked all the time. And I thought we were doing all the things that we normally would do. We had really good security in place and good everything that we normally do. And the only thing I could figure out is that there's a vulnerability on the server. There's something here that we're missing. Maybe it's server side. I don't know. But since we moved it, jeez, knock on wood. Matt. Okay. But anyway, but I think part of quality and ensuring that is also, and it's part of relieving that stress, right? So we have clients our job, it's actually on our website, we relieve stress, right? And it's true, because the way you do that is number one, having good quality assurance practices, but also, and having a whole team buying into that, and good processes, but it's also making sure you have backups and you have ways to revert. So if something does go wrong, and it will, you're minimizing the losses. So there's a lot less stress involved. You're not gonna, be down your website's not gonna be down for a day, because we probably have something in place to revert, to restore it quickly or whatever. So just to speak to design a little bit too, we actually have a pretty involved design project this past week, so it's fresh. But we're doing some design for one of our long-term clients. We actually only did development, a little design here and there, but now we're doing much more. And we did our first sales page, and the process here, there's a lot to flesh out at first, because we're kind of doing two things at once. We're actually creating kind of a style guide for them, and improving their brand throughout everything we're doing for them. But at the same time, we're building a sales page for a launch that's happening Monday, like right away. So we're doing a lot of stuff, but in that process, it's been this multiple parties involved. I'm more involved up front here because I need to make sure that this gets delivered, and so I'm a little more involved with this particular first part of this. But I have my designer doing the work, and then I check the work. Then I might tweak some stuff and have her do an iteration on that, or whatever her thing. So we're kind of both working on a little. She's doing 99% of it. I'm just tweaking it, and then we send that to the client. The copywriter we're actually working with over there. They check, they give us the feedback. They had kind of primed the pump a little bit with all kinds of, references and things that they wanted us to look at. So a lot happened up front, but during that process, it's me going back to them, getting some feedback, going back to the designer, making those tweaks back there. Now, overall, like he said a day or two ago, he's like, this is actually really solid. It looks really, really good. I'm just getting, because we're at that stage now and we have a little bit of time, we're getting into the details, right? So we're getting very detailed, and so we keep in every time. But it was this whole process. I have my designer. It's the first time she's working with this company, and So I want to make sure I'm there. So I'm kind of that quality assurance, making sure that what they're doing, what she's doing is going to be delivered and meet their requirements. In between there, I also have a web developer. So of course we're designing it. In parallel, we're building the page. I have a web developer building the page and translating that design. I had to this is a really interesting project. I had to actually, kind of do these things in parallel. So as she's designing it, I'm feeding stuff to the developer. So because it needs to be done quickly. So this whole thing. But even then, so like with the copy, as just the copy example. So this is a copywriter we're dealing with. And it's very specific copy. He's got a very specific vision, a way he likes to build things. And so even that copy, I'm looking at the copy, but then the designer's looking at the copy. But I also said I gave the web developer a heads up and said, I need you to review the copy as well. We all need to review this copy, make sure it's precise and exactly what is in the document they gave us. So there we're all working together for quality to make sure that when it's released, that everything, so again, it's baked into the process. It's baked into the project itself. When a designer's doing so, I'm sure she's making sure and double checking, triple checking. I'm checking in between. I'm reviewing, sending that off. I'm creating videos to to talk to everybody. The client I've made videos for, the developer, and the designer. If they give me they give me feedback, I make a video for my designer going through that feedback, making sure she understands what he's communicating and stuff. And it's this iterative process. It's this multiple people involved with that quality assurance side of things. And we don't have a QA team. We don't need one in this case. It's not the type of project where we would need to send it off to a QA team for a week. It has to happen quickly in this case. So it's going through this process. It's feedback, iterations, get it done. So now it's pretty close to done. I get an update every morning. This is what's been done. I review it. I'm in that process. So I'm kind of assuring that quality myself. And so that's that. But so that happens on the design side as well. If we're doing a website, a full website design, and my designer is working on that, I'm reviewing it. I may go back and forth there first, right? Before we even go to the client. Sometimes it's good. It looks good to me, off to the client. But before we even send it to the client, we're assuring that everything looks good, right? We have that process in place. Now the client has it. They might have feedback. Before that gets okayed to be developed, it has to have, there has to be a sign off there, like from the client and everybody involved. This looks good. We all agree this looks great. Let's build it, right? So that's the quality assurance there, is making sure before we even start coding that everyone has signed off on this, that this is great, minus that example I just told you where we're doing both at once. You got to do what you got to do. So then there's the other thing here too, is user testing, which is a little different than quality assurance testing. It's what all the stuff I'm talking about here is basically, even the client, when we're talking about the client, it's all the stuff that's the team's doing. But sometimes you need to go outside of that and bring in, and it can be within your company, your agency. It could be somebody that's completely outside, not even a developer. Oftentimes that's better. Maybe somebody in customer support or somebody, anyone else you can bring in to test whatever you're doing. If it's let's say it's a WordPress theme we built, somebody to go in and just, navigate through the site. And, but if it's a checkout process, having somebody do that, all the things that are critical to that site. But what often happens is you get reports of bugs and things that you didn't, as the developer, catch. Or somebody has some insights into something that, you didn't think of, or the developer didn't think of, and that can even, just change something that the client didn't even realize they should have done differently, you know? So having other users come in and test things is really good in certain circumstances. And again, not always going to be able to, it's not always going to be able to happen. But if it can, if you have the time and the ability, bringing those extra people in is good. But again, we sort of do that like with like maintenance, plugin updates and stuff, having another person come in to look at those things that didn't do the development of it or the update. That's important too. But then going beyond that and having other users and as many as possible, because you know the more the merrier. The more time you have for that, the merrier. Can't do it forever. Eventually, you got to say, let's just go and hope for the best. Okay, retrospectives. We'll land on this. Retrospectives. When something goes wrong. Even when things go right, I suppose, but you always kind of want to look back at when you went through a project and there were issues. You need to sit down. Retrospective kind of comes from that. I learned kind of what that word even means when I was learning Scrum, Agile Project Management. So you'd always do at the end of a sprint, which is like a time frame you work on something defined. At the end of that, you do this retrospective to see what could we have done better, identifying those issues, what can we do to prevent those in the future? What did we do right? You want to do that. You want to do that at the, we've had a project we've been working on. It was a really complicated, like database type project. We're moving a database, huge 15,000 products. In a database, in a .NET database that we moved to WordPress, WooCommerce. And overall, we're delivering on that, right? We're actually, we're going to launch at the end of this month. So we're in a good place. But in that time frame, things happened, things went sideways. There were surprises. Things happened. And it just seems like more because it was a big project. Things happen in little projects all the time. But they're not as, the more you do, the more things there are. But I told my team though, I'm like, at the end, I'd like to talk to you and I'd like to talk to the team and just go over the project. What could we have done better? And this may lie on me. This may come back to me, right? There's things, in fact, it does. There's things I know from this one project that we're going to be changing and doing differently. We've already started doing that. But those are the things you want to identify, and I want to listen to the team. They might say something like, that's why the team has to be comfortable. Let's say, hey, Matt, probably the reason this happened is because you didn't do this or whatever. And that's how I learned. That's how I get better. That's how we get better as a team and as an agency. I'm always reviewing those things. I'm always talking to people and it goes back to marketing too, on our marketing side. Like if we're doing content or we're doing the podcast and we feel like something we're always talking about what we did or if something went wrong or whatever, how could we improve that? Do we need to tweak a process? Do we need to inject something into a process to, get a better result, better quality? So retrospectives and communication throughout everything is really, really important. So that's it. A long podcast, over 40 minutes, just talking about quality assurance and teams and all that good stuff. This all relates to, obviously if I'm going to speak from the trenches, if this is a solo episode, I'm probably talking a lot about web development and design and that type of stuff, because that's kind of what we do. But it can relate to anything, like I said, early on in this episode, if you're a marketing agency or anything in a company that's doing a lot of stuff that, that you're delivering to either a customer or a client or whatever, being very thoughtful about this stuff and making sure that it's baked into everything. Like I said, for us, it's not so much that we don't always have a quality assurance team in place, right? And there's edge cases where that might be happening, but like with our partners or whatever. But in terms of our core team and what we do, a lot of it's just baked into what we do and our processes. There's no defined role that says, I'm a QA person. No, it's just baked into everything we do. And because we're careful, because we take our time and all the things I discussed, the clients are happier and less stressful. And so are we. Because, that just means we have fewer problems and fewer fires we have to put out. All right. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. Take care, Builders Crew. Bye-bye.
That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you are interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.